Hello and welcome to the Aligned Soul Podcast, a community dedicated to exploring psychic, intuitive, and energetic abilities as a way to live in alignment with your soul's highest wisdom and live your most empowered, confident life. On this podcast, you'll find conversations with guest speakers, leaders, and mentors from a variety of the healing and psychic arts, how-to sessions on various skill-based topics, as well as channeled guidance and listener share-outs. I'm Erin Roberts, your host, and I'm a psychic medium, channeler, and energy healer with credentials in a wide variety of the spiritual arts and creator of the Aligned Soul Collective, which is my exclusive membership community offering premium content, exclusive workshops, and extended episodes, which you'll find linked in the description. Today I'm here with my very first guest on the Aligned Soul podcast. It is an inaugural day, and I'm so excited to announce Liz Murphy, who is an evidential medium and mediumship teacher. I know Liz through her mentorship programs. She's the person who really helped me launch from a medium curious explorer into a novice and now a working medium. Liz has been a truly transformative coach in my spiritual development, and I know she has been that for so many others too. She has an amazingly simple, easy to follow method that helps her community connect quickly and easily to spirit and learn how to receive consistent evidence that creates a powerful mediumship experience for the medium, the sitter, and the spirits involved in the conversation. It is with huge gratitude and such an honor to have her as the first guest on this show. Welcome, Liz.
Welcome, Liz, to the Aligned Soul podcast. It is such an honor to have you here. Why don't we start with just letting you introduce yourself, describe who you are, and what you do.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited. My name is Liz, and I am an evidential medium, and I'm also a teacher mentor. I work specifically with beginner mediums, and they usually end up in my inbox because they are struggling with their connection with spirit. They either can't get connected, they don't know how to make it work, or they've tried all the things and nothing's worked for them, like meditation, all of the things that you're told you're supposed to do, but none of it's worked. And so I have a program where I take people through like a step-by-step that I created, how to get connected, and then give them all the foundations that they need to give a good reading and move forward with their development.
Beautiful. And I can attest to Liz's program because I'm one of her students. So we'll talk a little bit about your method, but it's really transformative of kind of going from curious about mediumship to being able to consistently understand, oh, this is how it works and this is how I'm connected.
Yeah.
So I can definitely attest to those programs. And Liz has a vibrant Facebook group community, which is amazing. So we'll make sure that all of those links and everything are linked up in the description. But that's how I met Liz initially, was through her Facebook group. She has a great group that meets a couple times a week. It's free, it's fun, and the community is so awesome. Like, these people are the nicest, kindest, like, most supportive. I just love your group.
I know. I feel so lucky and grateful to have, like, because I've been in, like, as a beginner, I was in a lot of groups, and there are a lot of groups that aren't that way, that aren't supportive and aren't kind. And so that was really why I started it, was because I wanted that to be a space where people could go and feel safe to practice and share all the things that, we're afraid to say in front of people. So yeah.
And you know what? I'm realizing now that we're talking through this, I'm realizing that we might want to have you touch on just briefly, what does evidential mediumship even mean? For listeners who maybe might not be familiar with those terms, what does that mean from your perspective?
Yeah, so it's a really great question because there are so many different types of mediumship. I have found out. I didn't realize that there were so many when I started. So for me, evidential mediumship means that when I connect to a spirit, I just ask them to tell me about their life. And they then give me information, which I give to the sitter, and then who is, the client or the person sitting in front of me. And then they are able to validate that that information is true or not. And that's a lot of the development piece, is learning how to accurately translate that information that the sitter then can understand, and be able to validate. And so it's really, really important, at least in my opinion, because I'm more logically minded and science, from a science perspective. And so for me, I want that evidence. I want to know for sure that, like, anybody could say, well, I have your grandma here and she says she loves you very much. And while that's nice and that's beautiful, and maybe those people really, really trust that they're connected so they don't feel like they need that evidence. From a client's perspective, I think that that's really, really important. And so we get all this great information that then we can give to the client, and they can leave knowing for sure that those messages that maybe are not so evidential, then can be trusted. And then if they know that that's really truly coming from their loved one in spirit, and that their spirit does live on, and that love and that bond that they have, that relationship can continue forward, just in a different way.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Thank you for describing that. You said there's a lot of different types of mediumship. Can you briefly kind of introduce the landscape? Like, what are those types?
Yeah, so this is where it gets, for me, I would say I'm not a purist and traditionalist, I would say, in evidential mediumship. There are people who are very clear that certain things are psychic, certain things are mediumship. And just because of how I came to mediumship and how I learned, I would say I didn't know the difference in the beginning. Or I did, but well, I'll just explain what I mean. So I would say there's evidential mediumship, and then there's mediumship where, like I talked about, where people just, they don't give the evidence. They just go straight to the messages. Here's what your loved ones are saying, what they want you to know, maybe some guidance, that sort of thing that comes from spirit. Right. I see that often, like on TikTok and underdeveloped mediums, things like that, is mostly where I've seen that kind of thing happen. But then you get into the realm of like spirit guides, and things like that to me are still mediumship. We are still connecting to spirit. But with spirit guides and things like that, we can't get evidence. I mean, we can sort of, but it's hard to get those validations because, we don't have a relationship with them in the physical world necessarily. Right. So it's just a little bit different. And when I started learning a little bit about psychic, and I know very little, I haven't like really done much with psychic at all, but the little bit that I've done is that we're still connecting to a living person's spirit. So the difference between mediumship and psychic is mediumship is about somebody who has passed away. We're connecting to that loved one's spirit. Psychic is where we're connecting to someone who is living. And in my definition, their soul or their spirit. And from what I have experienced, and that's all I can base my philosophy on, is my experience and what I've learned from spirit, is that it's all the same. Spirit is spirit. And so I understand why we have the distinction, mostly for clients. But from the medium's perspective, I don't see a lot of difference there. And I could feel the difference. Like I know when someone's alive, or I know when someone's passed. So that's very clear to me. But it all works exactly the same. It all comes in exactly the same for me. So there are all different kinds of things that we can do within that spectrum. So, and I think from what I've learned from other people is that communication, like with spirit guides, or with other spiritual beings, tend to end up in that psychic category, which I don't know how I feel about that yet. So yeah, I'm still on the fence, but it just all feels exactly the same to me.
Yeah. My work with Liz, just for those who don't know my background as much, my work with Liz was kind of like one of the first parts of my psychic arts journey. Just kind of like going straight into the mediumship, whereas I think a lot of other people actually take a route where they experience psychic work first, like as a step up, then toward evidential mediumship as like a final resting place. Oh, that's funny. No pun intended. But as a final destination on their journey. So it's interesting that you and I actually both came at it from like the opposite perspective. I've been dabbling in learning to do psychic readings recently because I find that there is client demand for it. I actually don't personally have as much interest in doing that work. I don't have as much passion for it, and it feels to me it's a little bit more challenging. I don't know. There's something about, for me, the evidential or the mediumship connection that is extremely straightforward. It's like there's a clarity when it comes in. It's hard to explain it, but there's just a very, very clear stream of information that I get. Yeah. But I've been dabbling in different ways to work with clients and to find clients. And what I'm finding is that there are actually few of them that want to work with me as a medium, and there's a lot of them that want to work with me doing psychic readings.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've experimented a bit with it, and like you said, I find that the process feels identical to me in terms of connecting and receiving the information. It's just that they're alive and sitting here right in front of me instead of beyond the veil. Yeah. So this would be a good time for us to talk a little bit about your story and, this wealth of knowledge that you just shared with us and kind of this landscape and how we're all navigating it. I'd love to hear about how you came to find mediumship, how you came to find this path of being a light worker, or what do you call yourself? A light worker? I mean, I kind of put that label on for you, but what's your story and how do you really see yourself in the space?
Yeah, I guess if I had to have a label, I guess I would just call myself a medium at this point. I'm this year, my word, I don't usually do a word of the year, but this year I decided I was going to pick a word, and it was expansion. Oh, and it really has been a year of just learning about all kinds of new things and just being open to sort of whatever happens. And it's been a really incredible year. But that aside, I really just call myself a medium at this point. And so how I came to this, gosh, this is it's always like, where do you start with this question? So I have been able to see, hear, and feel spirit since as far back as I can remember. And but it's pretty young. I considered myself an atheist. I grew up in a religious family, but it never really resonated with me. And so for most of my life, I really tried to reconcile how could I be seeing these things? Because I saw them in like full apparitions. So, there was no doubt in my mind or question of what it was. But how could this be? And so, like I said, I spent a lot of my time sort of just trying to understand and figure this out. And it was about 3 or 4 years ago that I had an awakening. And there was one afternoon, and my husband is so patient and so kind with me. I would have these conversations over and over and over again with him. And one day, I think he was just a little bit frustrated with me. And he's like, what if you just like open yourself up to the possibility that there's something more than nothing? And I was like, in that moment, I was just like, and I think that I really did. And I had this experience where we live in the woods. and that's a whole nother story, but we live in the woods in a camper, and outside, all of the trees in that moment when I sort of did surrender, all of the trees lit up. All of the leaves I could see. I like to call it like the shimmer, like on in Twilight, you know, when the main character like starts shimmering in the sun. It looks just like that.
Oh, cool.
And it was every rock, every, you know, blade of grass, like just every single thing had the shimmer around it, and it was glowing. I later realized that I was just seeing the energy of everything. And there was this profound moment of knowing that everything's connected, and that we are all interconnected, and that we're all part of one another. And that lasted for about 2 days. And it was exhausting. I'm really glad that it ended. It was beautiful while it happened, but you couldn't live there forever.
Yeah.
It was really draining. I felt like I needed to sleep for like a week after that.
Wow.
Yeah, but it was amazing, really amazing. And so it was after that, I wish I had kept better like journal entries about all of the things that happened. So that's my tip, that when you're starting, keep track of everything, because it's really fun to go look back at that stuff. But there was one evening where I was laying in bed, and I was watching like Netflix on my phone, and in front of the movie, it was as though another movie was playing. And my grandfather, who had passed a few years ago before all this, he was on the movie screen. And he and I had a difficult relationship. About 10 years before he passed, we'd gotten into an argument about religion. He was very religious and didn't understand what, you know, my lifestyle. And we never talked again. And so it was very difficult when he passed. You know, we got to like just say sort of goodbye to each other on the phone before he passed, but we were never able to reconcile our relationship. And so anyway, in this little movie screen, he came in and he told me that it wasn't what he thought, but it's not what I thought either. And we were able to have this really beautiful conversation and heal that relationship. And it was an incredibly profound moment for me. Yeah. And a little bit of like, what the heck just happened?
Yeah.
And so after that, I started just really doing some research, figuring out like, what was this? What happened to me? What was, you know, this whole experience, this awakening thing? Because I didn't have words for it at the time. And realized that all of the things, this experience, along with everything that had happened to me previously in my life, was just me connecting to spirit. It was mediumship. And so from there, I just started following the breadcrumbs, and I, you know, things would pop up in my Facebook feed. I would, you know, attempt things. So when I finally did get brave enough, I think the one thing that I ended up in the beginning with was a Facebook group that did photo readings.
Okay.
And so I started there because I was so shy and nervous in the beginning. Like I had serious fear of being seen. I never would have, I couldn't even get onto a Zoom, like with my camera off in the beginning. I was so nervous. And so photo readings were kind of my saving grace in the beginning. I know it's true for a lot of people. And I started there, and I was doing great. I was connecting, and building my skills, building my confidence. But there came a point where I like was getting frustrated with it. I couldn't get the feedback that I needed. You know, people in those groups do their best, but they don't really understand what mediums need. And so I felt this pull to like really start to push myself forward, that I knew I needed to start working with people face to face. And so that was really where the personal development journey started, of having to heal all of those issues.
Yes. Isn't that beautiful? That like your own personal ascension.
Yeah.
was like alongside this. That's amazing.
It really is. I don't think that you can do one without the other.
Mm,
It always brings up stuff that we need to work on.
mhm.
It still brings up stuff. Even when I think I've got all of the things healed, this new thing will come up.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. And and so I went from there and yeah, so and then there was, I started working with people, really started going to circles, really enjoying myself, loved everything about this. And then this last year, I sort of felt this nudge. I started doing, like you talked about, my own circles. Somebody had asked me to fill in, and I thought, oh, this is great. And so I started doing my own. Um, and people were asking me questions, and I got this sort of pull from people to start teaching. And I was like, I don't know about this, because I never learned how to do this. It just came very natural to me.
Mhm.
And so I didn't have to learn how to connect, and I didn't have to learn all those steps. So I didn't know how to teach people to do that. And so I talked with Spirit, and I said, if you want me to do this, if this is really what my path is meant to be, then you have to give me the steps to do this. You have to show me how. And they did. I got this download one afternoon of, like, here's how to do it. And
Mm.
I was at a point then where I just really trusted things. I didn't second guess anymore.
Yeah.
So my husband was very interested in learning how to do it. So I said, well, let me practice on you. And it worked instantly.
Oh, I didn't know that your husband.
Yeah, I know. I don't. Like, in the
story.
beginning, I didn't tell anybody about this. Yeah. And so I taught my husband how to do it, and I was like, well, that was easy. And so then I kind of gathered up a few more people, and I'm like, can I experiment with you and see?
Yeah.
Because they were in the group, and they didn't know how to do anything. They just were there to be sitters and watch, and which is amazing and lovely. And they were able to connect right away that first session.
Wow.
And I was like, well, I think I've got something here. And so that's when I really got the ball rolling with teaching, and it's my favorite thing.
Yes. Yes. That's amazing. I feel like all of that really confirms that, like, a part of your path and karma and purpose in this lifetime is to be a teacher. I feel like those of us, so I'm a teacher, as you know. I've taught in public schools for a long time. I've taught music. I've taught a variety of different things, mostly performing arts. But I, like you, I receive downloads for how to explain these things to people.
Yeah.
And I don't know where they come from. And so that's why I've always felt like, oh, this is truly my purpose, is to teach, because otherwise I wouldn't be gifted these downloads of a step-by-step process. Like you said, one day you just all of a sudden, and you write it down. That's like, I can think of a lot of different times in my teaching career when moments like that have happened. And that's amazing.
Yeah. So it's been great, because I just design all my classes like that now. I'm just like, tell me what they need.
Yeah.
And even with like the mentoring sessions, I don't prep at all. I like 5 minutes before I say, okay, what do they need? And then in the moment, just really trust that they're going to speak through me, and know that whatever comes out is what's needed for the person in front of me. Yeah.
Yeah. That's beautiful. And it's a great segue into kind of letting you describe in a little bit more detail. We've touched on kind of like your method or your understanding of what mediumship is. Is there a style that you teach, or kind of a method that you teach, or a philosophy that you want to share with this audience?
Sure. Well, I'd say my style is very not woo-woo. I fall into I like concrete steps. That's just how my brain works. I need to know how things work and why they're working the way they are. And I just need that logic to really have it make sense and solidify in my brain. So a lot of what I teach is very, very simple. It's very much simplified. I also homeschooled my kids, and I really believe that keeping things simple is the best way to do that. There are so many things in mediumship and just spirituality in general that we could touch on, we could learn, but I really try to break it down and keep it at the simplest level as possible. So that for sure. But with my own mediumship, I really believe in the evidential, but also in conversational mediumship. And I've never heard anybody talk about that in that perspective, but when I sit down with spirit for a reading with someone, I really view it as like we're all sitting together having a coffee and I'm meeting somebody for the first time. And when I do that, with somebody in real life, I just say, it's nice to meet you. Tell me about your life. I want to know about you. Versus me sitting there with a checklist of things that, I want to know about you. Because that's so cold and boring and rigid and not how we act as humans at all. So, and it's just so unnatural. So within most mediumship development, there is this sort of like checklist of evidence that we're taught to learn, and we've got to go through and get all these things that we're giving a good reading. But for me, I really like to keep it as organic and natural as possible. And so it's like, okay, tell me about yourself. What would you like to convey to the sitter? Because I don't have any context for your relationship. I don't know anything about the two of you. You know exactly what the sitter needs to hear, and what they need to heal through their grief or life or whatever's going on. And so I really do trust that the information that comes through is exactly what they need. So I don't need to go try to find certain pieces. So oftentimes, if the passing doesn't come up, it's because they don't need any healing around that kind of issue. But maybe it's, like they were a difficult person in life. And so maybe there's some healing that needs to be done around that. I love to keep it really organic, natural, conversational with my stuff.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great way to describe it. And because Liz, you've been my only mentor within this space, I've kind of developed a lot of those similar similar style, I guess, into how I'm learning to do readings. I like that you mentioned that, the checklist. I do struggle with the checklist sometimes. I feel like it takes me out of receiving and it puts me into searching, which is a more of a prefrontal cortex kind of executive function where I'm going out and I'm looking for information. And I find myself more often becoming anxious, second guessing my evidence, not sure if I'm making it up, getting into all those gray areas that we don't want to be getting into, versus when I'm just kind of receptive and share what I'm receiving and not, worried about whether we cover the age of death and the relationship and the time of passing and, all the things. However, I do want to ask a follow-up question to that. Do you find that your clients want the checklist items? Or is the checklist kind of like we as the mediums know about the checklist because we work in the field, but like an average person wouldn't anyways?
Yeah. And I actually find that most of my clients don't care about the evidence at all, unfortunately.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's actually a little sad. They really just want to hear the messages. And I think it's something that I have really been interested in because the evidence is so important to me. And I'm amazed that there's people who don't care so much about that. But also I think it's regional. I know that there's parts of the world where all they want is the evidence. They don't and they don't even want to hear messages. They just want all of the facts, that they very much believe that the evidence is the message. So there's that kind of belief system. There are parts of the world where, they like a little bit of both. And then what I have been discovering for myself, at least, is that there are the people who they want majority of the messages. It's like, okay, great. I know you've got them. Now I just want to, hear what they have to say. There are people who will give you just the yes, no, I don't know kind of answers. And there are people who will give you a yes, and then here's my whole life story behind it.
Yeah.
In reality, that's how people behave in a reading.
Okay.
Very, very rarely do you get the just, I'm going to give you a yes, no, I don't know.
Right.
So that's part of the style. I guess if we were to go back to style too, that's part of what I do, is that part of that conversational style, because a lot of times those people are there because they want to talk about their loved one. They don't have any other place to talk about their person. And them giving you information doesn't affect the evidence at all. There's a whole lifetime of evidence there. So, if they're giving me stuff, I can just play off of that, and I can continue to give more evidence based on the things that they've told me.
Yeah.
And so I think that element is really important as well.
Yeah, I'm glad you shared that. I have experienced that now and then, where I'll have a sitter that is like, you'll present a piece of information and they'll like light up and like, oh my God, yes. And then there was this time at Christmas and we did this and blah, blah, blah. And they just light up about it.
Yeah.
And yeah, for me, I don't find that it affects my ability to keep the connection. It actually adds to it, because it's like, it's not about what they're saying coming out of their mouth. It's about their energy. It's about like, they're like, oh my God. And suddenly they're like in this moment, and it's the three of us now, like really in this inspired moment where we're like building this what's the right word for it? It's like a connection line, like and it's stronger than someone who's like, yes, no, maybe, no,
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
who's in there?
Yeah. I love it when they do that, because they become part of the process then. It's not just me talking to their loved one, but they get to like feel like they're communicating with them as well. Yeah, it's so important and so healing for the client.
Yeah. Yes. So on that note, that's a perfect way for us to kind of share. Do you have a story about a client, or a particular session or sessions you've done where you felt just that healing was occurring, or like, oh, this is why I'm doing this. Like, it makes it feel worth it, Could you share, I guess, a success story?
Oh yeah. Let me pick one. I love this work that I do. I just feel so grateful to be able to be this like jumping off point for people, because I do get to see them go from like, I'm so scared and I'm so nervous and I doubt everything, to just like putting themselves out there and being confident. And it's, that alone is just such a thrill for me. I love that. What I really love to see is how through mediumship, they get to sort of find their path as well. So for example, like I have one student who she's a nurse, and she's like super burnt out with nursing and all that it encompasses, the more administrative side, less healing, sort of bureaucracy, red tape that happens within that industry. But she really she wants to help people heal. And so through mediumship, she started taking Reiki, and is discovering that there's a way to blend the two together to really help people heal. And I love that, people are taking these modalities and mixing them together and then creating these opportunities for people to have a whole different life-changing experience. And so there's that one that like is one of my favorites. There's another one. It all tends to be around helping people heal, because that's what we do.
Yeah.
And a lot of people come from the nursing industry, at least for my students.
Really? Oh, that's interesting. I mean, now that you bring it up, it makes sense.
Yeah.
I guess I wouldn't have thought that off the bat.
Yeah. There's another woman that works in palliative care, And again, she's like, I feel like there's more I could be doing. And so she's come to mediumship. And we were able to sort of talk through how she could use mediumship within that as well. And so how she could be a death doula and, do hospice care for people and really help them, not just the patient, but the families before and after. Yeah. I mean, just how profound that would be to help people in transition know that, like they're going to a place that's okay. They're just going home. They're going back to spirit. There's nothing to be afraid of. And then having the families know that they can continue that relationship, that those, yes, it's awful that they're not here physically. There's definitely a grieving process. It doesn't eliminate that, but for them to know that they can continue that after their person is gone. It's just this whole cycle. That's really, really beautiful. So a lot of people end up sort of finding their paths that way, which that excites me more than anything.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's really cool. I hadn't thought about that in the different ways to blend those skills. I think in my work, like I said, I'm still kind of in the beginning stages of exploring, these different modalities and kind of finding well, what am I kind of naturally good at? What excites me the most? What seems like it's helping people the most? So that's so cool to think about, bringing different modalities together. But that's really cool. It's interesting because when I think of nurses, I mean, it's horrible to say this, but I don't even think of the word healing.
I know.
And isn't that awful? Is their job is healing. That's their whole job.
I know.
But, we have, for me, I have my employer sponsored healthcare that's extremely bureaucratic and I love it. Thank God I have it, but it doesn't feel healing when you go see the nurse at the hospital where I go. Healing wouldn't be the first word that would come to my mind. But that's what it is, and that's what it should be, and that's really, really cool that these people are finding this path.
Yeah. It's cool. It's very cool. Plus, it's just super satisfying that somebody can come in with no ability to connect and leave, after 6 weeks, really having the confidence to not just connect and eliminate the doubt and all of that, but have those foundations to be able to just go give a good reading to somebody. That's amazing. And I don't see that very often. So
yeah, I mean,
that.
I'm just gonna, shout from the rooftops here. That was my experience. I went to your circle a couple times, Liz, and then I booked private with you. And in our very first session, I went from 0 to fully connected, fully reading, fully gathering information. I mean, it was incredible. I was like, what? It's this easy? I mean,
everybody says the exact same thing.
Yeah. So again, I don't have other teachers to compare it to, but that's pretty incredible. I don't feel like there's a lot of things where you can just do it on the first try. So it's pretty amazing. What do you see kind of as your next steps? Where are you at in your journey? Where do you see your purpose flowing to, next? You said your word for the year is expansion, which is so cool. What's next for you?
Well, my focus is on teaching, and I really want to focus on creating more classes for people, smaller classes, in more specific skills and mechanics, is really where I'd like to go with what's happening right now. Personally, I'm really super interested in trance mediumship right now. That's kind of where my personal sort of journey has gone.
Okay.
I've had some wild, crazy experiences. I don't know if you've heard of gateway meditation tapes or gateway experience tapes through the Mediumship Institute. I started doing those just on the fly one day, and it was profound. I will just say that.
Wow.
And so what I'd really love to do is use trance in some way, and I don't even know if it's possible. I think it's possible I don't know if anybody else does it. I've never seen it done. But what I'd like to do is be able to use trance and mediumship together. So through a mediumship reading, really, and what trance means for those that don't know is that we just blend really close with spirit and allow them to like speak through us. So we move our minds out of the way. It's not like they're taking over our bodies or anything like that, but we just move our minds out of the way enough for them to be able to talk through us. And I think it would just be so neat for someone to be able to have a reading where they're really hearing from their loved one directly. I don't know if it's possible or not, but that would be sort of my end goal right now.
Wow, good for you. That's exciting.
Yeah.
So and just to, again to clarify, so trance, so taking use of the body. So there would be things that like inflection of the voice might change, an accent, mannerisms of the hands. You might see when someone is in trance and they are channeling or connecting with spirit or whatever it is, they take on kind of the persona, the mannerisms and the voice of whoever that spirit entity is. Wow, that's next level. I'm excited.
Oh, it would be amazing. It would be amazing. So
to see where you go with that.
Close to that yet, but that's kind of my goal. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. So to bring this all back, you are such an inspiration. You are doing so much for the mediumship community. I'm so grateful to have you here. I'm so grateful to work with you, also in your groups and privately. So to kind of bring this all back to what this podcast is about, it's about soul alignment. It's about different psychic and intuitive modalities that help people to find what is their soul aligned with, what is their soul journey. So what do you do to feel aligned with your soul? What is a practice or a routine or something that you do in your day that keeps you aligned?
Yeah. In life in general, I would say my husband and I years ago created kind of a North Star for ourselves. And it was sort of pre-spirituality. So it was very much everything that we do has to be connected to each other and the earth. And we have also added in the spiritual aspect in the last few years. But every decision that we make, everything we do is really based upon that sort of North Star value system. Day to day, spiritual wise, I love sitting in the power. It's something that if I don't do it, I really notice and I feel off for the day. It helps me stay calm. It helps me stay relaxed and just joyful. Connecting to spirit is so joyful. And yeah.
That's beautiful. Do you have, as we're wrapping up here, do you have anything that you would like to promote? Any classes coming up? Any special events? Anything that you would like to invite people to? Obviously, I will include all of your links so people can check you out. And please do check out Liz. She's amazing. Is there anything particular you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, I think we talked about most of it. I'm a very simple person. I keep my life very simple. So it's really right now, it's just the 1 6-week program, the mentorship program. I do also do single sessions, but if you want to learn how to connect and build the foundations, that's a 6-week program. Yeah. And then the circles, like the beginner circles, I have a beginner circle and then one for all levels. But if you are like just curious about mediumship and maybe not necessarily want to practice, but are, want to learn more about it, more than welcome to come to the beginner circles. There is the group, like we mentioned, that is for beginners only. I'm really, really like strict about that because it is so intimidating when you're first starting out to practice in front or ask questions or share experiences in front of, more advanced mediums. And so to have that space is super important to me. And I take that really seriously. Um, and then I am hopefully this summer after I get back, because we travel a lot. Right now we're at a beach house, but we'll be headed home in a couple of weeks, back to the woods. And so I hope once all of this transition is done and we're settled again for 6 months that I'll be able to do some classes again. But every other month I run the clairs class. So it's like developing your clairs, and how to improve your mediumship through those clairs. And then I'm going to be starting a new, it's what really people wanted was a small sort of intimate experience. The groups can get kind of vague sometimes.
Yeah.
So I'm doing a development circle where each week we'll have like a specific topic that we're going to talk and learn about, and there'll be exercises to go with it then. And there's like my classes, when I do group classes, there's like a max of 12. So it's super small. Everybody gets to know each other, very comfortable.
Nice.
Yeah. And so I'm hoping to alternate those kind of for every 4 weeks, every other month. So that's my plan going forward.
Nice. So many good things.
Yeah.
Well, I think that kind of wraps up our conversation for today. So I'll just say again, check out Liz's links down in the description. And thank you so much for being on this podcast. Thank you for being the very first guest ever on this podcast. It's been great to have you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Erin. I really appreciate it.
Thanks everyone for listening to this episode of the Aligned Soul podcast, which you can find on Spotify, YouTube, and Patreon. If you're interested in learning more about intuitive and psychic development topics, please join my membership on Patreon, which offers all my extended content plus community forums, or follow me on any of my social media platforms in the description. I'll also invite you to join me for a live workshop on April 27th called The Body as an Intuitive and Psychic Tool. In this free online workshop, I'll show you how to use your body as one of your most powerful tools for receiving and interpreting psychic and intuitive information. I'll introduce the 5 clairsenses, discuss ways to reconnect with your body in a society that overuses the mind, and we'll practice somatic techniques to release stuck energy that might be blocking your intuitive flow. So please join me for that. It's free, it's fun, and you'll find it linked in the description to register. Thanks for joining me, and we'll see you next time.